All-Pro wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk indicates that he is interested in being traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to be breaking that down today on Steelers Talk and whether or not I think the Steelers should make a move for the All-Pro wide receiver to pair with George Pickens. But before we get into that, go ahead and give me a follow on my social media accounts here at Jack_Sperry on X and then at SpareDog.football on Instagram. If you're a fan of this show, I have additional content both on Instagram and on X. I actually just put out a brand new NFL mock draft. All 32 picks in the first round of this year's NFL draft. It's my first one of the draft season. So if you're interested in more content from me here, you can go to at Jack_Sperry on X or at SpareDog.football on Instagram. And with that, let's get into today's show. Before we get into Brandon Aiyuk today, I did want to mention that Mike Williams, the guy that has been linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was slated to visit the Steelers on Thursday this week, has signed a contract with the New York Jets. He visited with them today. And of course, I was saying all week, we talked about it earlier this week, that if Mike Williams ended up making it to the Steelers meeting on Thursday, I predicted he would sign a contract. But he had other meetings lined up, and it seems like the New York Jets were able to convince Mike Williams that he was a good fit there with Aaron Rodgers moving forward with Garrett Wilson as his other wide receiver there in that offense. And he got paid quite a bit, man. 1 year, $15 million. I think that probably was out of the Steelers' price range. So now the Steelers need to move on and try to get a different wide receiver to fill out this room. And why not Brandon Aiyuk, somebody that has been in the rumor mill here ever since the start of the offseason, ever since the Super Bowl, really. He has indicated that he wants to be traded away from the San Francisco 49ers, the reigning NFC champions. And he actually tweeted this earlier today saying, at Coach Tomlin, they saying we twins. What you think? All right, so this is the first time that BA has tweeted anything since April of last year. All right, so almost a year since he's been active on that X account, and you're just going to tell me it's a coincidence that he is all of a sudden getting it booted up again, and the first person that he ends up messaging and the first person he ends up tweeting is Coach Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers when he's rumored to be potentially going there? Okay, man, I think that I know for sure where BA wants to end up next year. He wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler in 2024. You can book that right now. He is making it abundantly clear where he wants to play next season, and it is with the Pittsburgh Steelers and head coach Mike Tomlin. Andrew Filipponi had this to say in terms of what the Steelers' interest looks like. He says the Steelers have looked into 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. He's entering the last year of his contract. Steelers would have to execute a sign and trade, but they've shown interest. So the big question that should be on every Steelers fan's mind right now is, what is the 49ers asking price for Brandon Aiyuk, and is that worthy of trading for a guy that wants to be away from the team that just won the NFC and nearly won the Super Bowl over Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? Now, NFL Rumors tweeted this out yesterday saying the 49ers wanted pick 17, a first-round pick, and wide receiver Zay Jones from the Jaguars in a trade for wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk, per multiple sources. So it seems like, at the very least, to get Brandon Aiyuk in the building here in Pittsburgh, you're going to have to give up your first-round pick this year, number 20 overall. Now, the latest rumors is that the Steelers could use that number 20 pick on a receiver anyway. So if you're going to pick up a wide receiver, the thinking goes, why not just trade your first-round pick, number 20, that you would have spent on a wide receiver anyway, and go out and get a proven product in Brandon Aiyuk, who was an all-pro last year, was absolutely phenomenal, is a good fit for Arthur Smith's offense, and even has versatility to play in the slot as well. I think that it's a very interesting idea. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. If you are GM Omar Khan right now, and John Lynch, the San Francisco 49ers GM, offers you this deal, first-round pick in exchange for Aiyuk, are you taking it? Type A if you would accept, or D for decline. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So whenever YouTube throws you an ad break here during the duration of this video, make sure you go down in the comments section and give me an A or D to answer today's pinned question. So let's talk about Aiyuk and his profile here for a little bit. He's only 26 years old, so he's still pretty darn young. He's entering the prime of his career, was All-Pro last year, a second-teamer in 2023 with the 49ers. And honestly, guys, I do think that he is a perfect fit for what the Steelers are looking for at wide receiver. He's maybe not the biggest guy in the world, but he is a good run blocker. You have to be able to run block in a Shanahan-style offense there in San Francisco. Of course, Kyle Shanahan is the offensive play caller there, and he does that really well despite his size. And he's also probably a top 5 route runner in the National Football League. And he's also a deep threat. He could do a lot of different things, man, and he would certainly keep the Steelers' options open in the draft as well. I like this fit between Brandon Aiyuk and the Steelers. And then you look at the numbers last year, man. They speak for themselves. 7 touchdowns last year, over 1,300 yards on 75 catches, and just under 100 yards per game there at 83.9. So very good season for Brandon Aiyuk. And I think that he is one of, you could make an argument, he's a top 10 wide receiver in our league today, and he's available, and apparently he wants to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, coming up, would I pull the trigger on a trade for Brandon Aiyuk, or would I go a different direction? I'll answer that question here in just a second, but before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at PrizePicks, and today's Steelers Talk video is made possible by our friends at PrizePicks, and they've got specials for new and returning users alike for March Madness when you head on over to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the PrizePicks app today. Football season may be over, but the action on the hardwood is just heating up. Whether it's March Madness or the fight for NBA playoff seeding, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of the year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. March Madness kicks off tonight with the first 4 games, and you can pick more or less right now. PrizePicks is also giving us a free pick for Caitlin Clark's matchup Saturday. Just select more than 0.5 points for Clark and pair it with another winner for 3 times your money. All right, that is an excellent deal. PrizePicks is simple. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get started now, and if you haven't already, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the PrizePicks app today and get a first-time deposit match of $100. Again, prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the PrizePicks app today. You can pick more or you can pick less. It's that easy with our friends at PrizePicks. So, guys, Brandon Aiyuk is not my first choice in terms of guys that I would go out and try to acquire at the wide receiver position this offseason, all right? And listen, this is somebody that I really have a lot of respect for. I love Aiyuk as a player. Like I just said, he's arguably a top 10 receiver in the league. So why don't I necessarily have him at the top of my list of wide receiver targets? Well, here's why. It's the money, and it is the concern I have that he was with the San Francisco 49ers last year, best team in football arguably, and he wants out regardless. So I'm not sure if he's really in it for the long haul here in Pittsburgh, even if the Steelers make a significant financial commitment. Next year, you look at the free agent pool for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All these guys are the starters for the Steelers right now that are hitting free agency. And, you're probably going to want to bring back either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, whoever establishes themselves as the next quarterback of this team moving forward. All right, if Cam Hayward decides to come back for another year, you're going to have to pay him. All right, and then you got Dante Jackson, James Daniels, Landon Roberts. Pat Freiermuth needs a new contract after this year. And, of course, Jaylen Warren is a really good running back that you probably want to bring back as well. So you have players that you still want in the building for the long haul that are slated to get paid in 2025, and the salary cap situation is already relatively dire. And if you're bringing back Russell Wilson or Justin Fields and they're your franchise quarterback and you're locking them up long term, you're paying them 30, 35, maybe even up to 40 or more $1 million per season on their next contract. And with a $30 million contract for Aiyuk on the books moving forward, I mean, the options that the Steelers are going to have are way, way, way less. And as much as I like Aiyuk as a player and as a skill set, $30 million for a guy like Aiyuk, who I do think, might be a little bit of a Deontay Johnson type personality. It's like, do we really want to go over that again? I mean, he was with the San Francisco 49ers last year. They made the Super Bowl. He was an all-pro in that offense. He was the featured wide receiver in the best offense in football, all right? And he was on arguably the best team in the game, all right? You could make an argument they should have won the Super Bowl over the Chiefs this year. And despite that, he wants out, all right? That's a little bit concerning to me because that indicates to me that he might be the type of guy where, if we lock him up to a 3-year extension and he's supposed to be here for the next 4 years, at the end of year 2, he decides he doesn't want to be here anymore. It's like, well, shoot, what are we supposed to do with him now? It's like, I don't know if I can rely on Brandon Aiyuk the same way I can rely on somebody on a lower level contract, somebody like a rookie. But also, you could potentially even just explain this away by saying Brandon Aiyuk just wants to get paid, right? San Francisco's not paying him. He wants to get paid close to $30 million per season as one of the best receivers in the game today. And San Francisco, plain simply, is just not willing to pony up that kind of dough. And because of that, that's why he wants to be sent elsewhere. And if he can get that bag here in Pittsburgh, then he won't have any of those issues that he has had here during this offseason with the San Francisco 49ers. But personally, guys, I think I would probably rather add a wide receiver in the draft, all right? Not only are they younger, even though Brandon Aiyuk is still relatively young, if you get a guy in the draft, he's younger, you have contract control over that guy for a longer period of time, and the overall dollar figure is a lot less, and it really opens up your possibilities in the future in terms of how you can attack free agency, in terms of how much you can bring back Russell Wilson or Justin Fields for in the future. And there's some really good wide receiver draft targets in this year's draft class. Here are some of the top guys that I think are really good fits for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU is an excellent fit. A.D. Mitchell out of Texas, Coop's favorite guy in this draft. I love A.D. Mitchell as well. He's absolutely fantastic. Xavier Legette, I think, is an excellent fit as well. Really reminds me of A.J. Brown, and we all know how well A.J. Brown did in this Arthur Smith offense back in Tennessee. And then Ricky Pearsall as well, somebody that could play in the slot, somebody that can play outside, really good route runner, and he's a dog as a run blocker, all right? So there's lots of really good wide receiver options that you can get on rookie contracts here, and I'd probably rather go this route than spend a first-round draft pick on a wide receiver that has had a little bit of a shaky history in terms of, wanting out even on good football teams. And also you have to pay him $30 million, which is going to restrict what you can do in free agency moving forward. So listen, I'm not going to cry if the Pittsburgh Steelers get Brandon Aiyuk. Like I said, he's a top 10 receiver in the National Football League who's a great fit for this offense. I would be super excited if we had a Brandon Aiyuk a surprise breaking news live show tonight. I would absolutely love that. I don't want the Steelers to overpay. I can't say I wouldn't have my concerns about it, especially long term, but Brandon Aiyuk is a special player. He's still young, and he's a great fit for this team. So if the Steelers really feel like that they want to really go all in on a Super Bowl here in 2024 with Russell Wilson leading the way, I think Brandon Aiyuk is probably one of the better wide receiver options still available on the market here during the 2024 offseason. And also, guys, even if you get Brandon Aiyuk, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't draft a wide receiver, right? You could bring in Brandon Aiyuk and you could bring in a new rookie to be the number 3 wide receiver. Now, that might get a little bit hairy because eventually you're going to have to be paying Brandon, you're going to have to be paying George Pickens, and, the rookie contract on the new player that you draft is going to be coming up as well. So things could get a little bit crowded in terms of big contracts in the wide receiver room if you end up getting Brandon Aiyuk and drafting a wide receiver early. But just imagine this wide receiver room, man. You could have Brandon Aiyuk as your number 1 wide receiver this year, and yes, he would be the number 1 guy over Pickens. Aiyuk is the all-pro. George Pickens is not there yet, even though Pickens is fantastic. You guys know how I feel about 14. And then you could potentially get a guy like Ricky Pearsall on day 2 in the draft, somebody that's a great run blocker, somebody that's a great route runner in the slot, and somebody that I'm really excited to see in the National Football League. Perfect fit in Arthur Smith's offense. This trio right here could really do some damage heading into 2024, and I'd be super excited about it if Omar Khan ends up pulling the trigger. But like I said, Brandon Aiyuk is not the number 1 guy on my targets list right now. That'll be it for today's show, guys. I appreciate you sticking with me here through the end of today's show. Make sure you click that subscribe button right now, because if they trade for Brandon Aiyuk in the coming hours or days or even weeks, we're going to be going live with breaking news coverage for you right here on Steelers Talk. So make sure you click that subscribe button right now.